In addition to his own children and stepchildren, Senator Kennedy was a surrogate father to the children of his slain brothers, John and Robert. While up in Boston for the memorial service, I caught up with the late senator's nephew, Robert F. Kennedy, Jr. We talked first about the outpouring of support in the Boston area and across Massachusetts and what it would have meant to his uncle.
My uncle's really obsessed with history, and every summer he used to take all of the grandchildren of Joseph Kennedy's grandchildren. He was a surrogate father to 29 of us. But we used to load us all up on a bus and take us to the great battlefields of American history, to the Civil War battlefields of Manassas or Gettysburg, or to the Boston battlefields, to Bunker Hill, and to see the Beaver where the Boston Tea Party was. And he loved history, and he really thought that his mission was to help America live up to its ideals, to perfect the Union, to make us an exemplary nation that he really believed that we ought to be and that our history dictated, to the paradigm of democracy and justice, and to persuade Americans that we all have to be heroic, that we have to resist this seduction of this notion that we can advance ourselves as a people by leaving our poor brothers and sisters behind, that everybody has to be included. And he did that with our family. I called Teddy maybe once a week, and he always called me back, or I was always called back by his office within 20 minutes with a time that he was going to talk to me that day. And he did that for 29 grandchildren, and then there's 80, great-grandchildren to whom he was a surrogate grandfather. And he called us always on our birthdays. He never missed a birthday. He never missed an anniversary. He called us on Christmas, sent us presents, and he was just a very, very attentive, which was a full-time job for the huge family that we had. But he was also doing all these other things for so many other people. And, he led an exemplary life in so many ways. And, he had his faults and his weaknesses, which, people are conscious of, but he was such a noble, heroic figure to all of us.
And so people ask now, at this generational passing in some ways, who picks up the torch in the family? People say, who leads the Kennedy family now?
Well, you know what? I have virtually every one of my cousins is involved in public service of some kind, and all of them are leaders in their field, whether it's helping people with intellectual disabilities, or whether it's doing environmental work or housing or all of these other issues. So I think everybody is, I've had a lot of opportunity this summer to spend time with all of my cousins, and because of Eunice's illness and death, and Teddy's illness and death, and we spend most of the Cape together in the summer. This summer, every a moment that I spend with them makes me prouder of the way that they've lived their lives and tried to live up to the ideals that were set by that generation, by Teddy's generation, my father's generation. So I think all of them are going to continue to make a difference.
Sometimes in Massachusetts, people say if there's a temporary senator, would it be Vicky or would it be Joe, or would one of them run for the seat?
I have no clue. I guess a week before he died, he was out on his boat, and he was very sick by then, and he was losing some of his ability to find words. And he was still very cognizant and very, he was able to steer his boat and to reason, to understand all the conversations. But it was sometimes, during some parts of the day, difficult for him to find the words that he was looking for. And I had a boatload full of kids, and I went by his boat, the Maya, and by his sailboat, and we all waved to each other. And he started yodeling, which he used to do all the time. He climbed the Matterhorn when he was younger, and he learned to yodel over there. And he would sometimes sing yodeling songs to the grandchildren. And I saw him back on the dock later on that day, and he grabbed my arm, and he looked at me very intensely in the eye, and then he just started yodeling. And then he said to me, "I'm sorry, it's all I got left."
Did you ever think this day would come? He's the only one of the brothers we saw grow old.
I think Teddy ultimately had a wonderful life, and he was just a naturally buoyant, happy person. And he felt the pain. He was engaged in his life. Even this year, I talked to him once about Uncle Joe, his brother, who was killed in World War II, and he wept. And when he really almost couldn't talk about my father or about President Kennedy without his eyes welling up with tears. So he had that kind of Irish side to him where he was, passionate and emotional about life, but he also just embraced life, and he loved the sea, he loved the wind, somebody said to me this morning, the weather was so perfect at Hyannisport, and somebody said to me, this is a perfect day for Teddy. And I was thinking to myself, every day was a perfect day for him. He loved it when it was blustery. He loved it when there was a gale blowing, and he would be out on his boat, even when small craft warning flags were flying and there was, rain beating against your face. He just loved it. And he loved life, and he loved our country, and he loved people. He was not a politician who was looking at America from 30,000 feet. He loved talking with the individual people and sitting down. It was hard getting him out of a room. And, so he had all of those sides. He had a tempest going on inside of him at all times. And, but so much of it was driven by passion, by love for humanity, and by love for our country.